Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, JC Soto, and today we have strategist and founder of Shed Wool, Cory Warfield. Welcome to the show, Cory Warfield.
JC, thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Now, I was reading about some of the challenges that some of the hiring managers have with their employees. What is Shed Wool and how are you helping your clients?
Absolutely. So I spent 20 years working in the restaurant and hospitality industry, both as a server and manager at many levels for 20 years. And working in the restaurant industry, every single day was an issue around scheduling. As an employee, as an employer, overstaffed, understaffed, and literally the schedule changing daily and the needs changing daily made it incredibly difficult to staff efficiently. So after 20 years, I spent the last 3 years building Shed Wool. Shed Wool is a mobile and web-based app solution. The word Shed Wool is a play on the pronunciation and spelling of schedule. So we're just kind of a different way to schedule. And we have many of our users kind of using it as a verb, check your Shed Wool. But we're effectively a platform that helps businesses manage their employees online and puts the power of the work schedule and being able to deal with changes to it and request time off and things of that nature right in the hands of the employees themselves.
That sounds really powerful. Now, is there a difference between helping scheduling for a small mom and pop shop versus a big corporation?
There is, and one of the things that we find with the small mom and pop shops is a lot of them maybe have 5, 10, 20 employees, and quite often they know when they work, right? So their schedules don't change nearly as much. But we do find within different subsects of that use case, there are the on-call shifts, and on-call shifts are a huge pain point. Restaurants all have on-call shifts, and effectively these shift workers don't know until about noon or early afternoon if they work that day or that evening. And, when you don't have a mobile app as an employee, you've got to call, or best case, you go online to see. But with a mobile app such as Shed Wool, you can actually request to work or not. You can see who's going to be needed. You can communicate with your management. Data comes into play to kind of help forecast that. So the people that want to be at work any given day can be there and they can kind of have that expectation. And the people that are looking to be off can get off. And right now, there's just not that oversight, particularly for a lot of the quick serve restaurant franchises, a lot of the hotel chains. And so that's kind of our target demographic. But we've had a lot of clients and customers, users come to us that we hadn't anticipated. So we have YMCA uses us. We have some hospitals, fire departments, police departments, universities using the software as well. And so what we found is that there are a number of industries and use cases where the schedules change and people are needed as they're needed. And we're starting to move into the veterinary space and into the event space. And we find that kind of as we peel the layers back of the onion, there's just more and more things that Shed Wool can be used for. And we've made some integrations with Alexa and Google Home and Google Calendar. And we have the ability to turn the actual schedules once they've been published into a PDF that can be printed, because some people still have that familiarity with the pen and paper. But really what we've done is we've automated and digitized much of the scheduling process, and now we're kind of going through and optimizing per and for specific industries.
Sounds fantastic. Now, you guys you connect employees to each other and to their work schedules using the web and mobile apps. What are the advantages of doing that for shift work companies?
Yeah, so one of the main things that it's doing is keeping them compliant with the emerging labor laws, fair scheduling laws, and things like that. We see that have already passed into legislation in New York, Washington State, Oregon, California, and quite often you see things start on the coasts and they start to move inwards. I'm here in Chicago. Quite often we're kind of a barometer, the state of Illinois, for what trends and what that's a pretty good indication. And we're starting to see a lot of people talking about and push initiatives for legislation around fair scheduling and labor laws. Starbucks took a couple $1 million hit in violation of the Fair Scheduling Act when it first came out on the West Coast a couple of years ago. And the first time violations are often in the high 5, 6, and even 7 figures. And second time infractions for these bigger companies can be pretty devastating. And so from the employer standpoint or the company standpoint, that oversight into being compliant and also monitoring overtime and having that kind of corporate office oversight into who's staffing properly and what their staffing needs are, and being able to tie that to some data points is really powerful. But at the end of the day, it's the employees themselves that can go on the phone when their schedule changes daily and weekly. Quite often, it becomes a little bit of a challenge to know when you're working, especially if there are days you'd rather not work and days you'd rather work. And invariably, there's always someone that wanted that day off when you wanted to work. And with the power of the mobile apps and the web app, they can find each other and replace each other, and their management can approve it all with a couple pushes of a button in a few seconds. Whereas that process right now either just doesn't happen, or it's a number of phone calls and text messages and back and forth. And then, quite often there's not enough oversight to make sure that those changes were the right changes to make. But when you put everything in a central place like Schedule, you can just, as a manager, go look, make sure things are good, make sure you're staffed properly. And from a mid-level management perspective, a lot of their bonuses revolves around labor. So if they have the web versions and if their employees can help optimize the scheduling, they can actually help them hit their numbers and make their bonuses. So there's really a lot of upside across the board.
Okay. Now, are there any myths when it comes to doing that, to connect employees through the web or to mobile apps? Are there any misconceptions about that?
I don't think so. I would say that maybe, and this is something that my sales team has begun kind of talking through with some of the quick serve restaurant franchises. I think a misconception from companies is that they have a scheduling solution for, with software because they have these POS systems, and the POS systems often are legacy systems, and more often than not, they will have a scheduling component. And sometimes they're fed with data, and sometimes they're tied into the corporate back end, but the managers quite literally on the POS can go through and create the work schedule. And because they have that workflow and it's what they're accustomed to, these companies all believe that they have scheduling taken care of with software. However, when they don't have the mobile apps for the employees, it's costing them a lot of time. It's almost always going to end up either in overstaffing or understaffing. And additionally, these labor laws are starting to demand that the employees have that 24/7 access. And a lot of the industries, candidly, that we're targeting, the average age range is 19 to 20. And so those people grew up with apps, and they kind of demand apps for everything. So the number of fast food restaurant chains that we're talking to right now really see the use case. And so we've kind of gone aggressive on that. We have the software now to where any restaurant chain or any company can change this to their color schematics and put their logo directly on the software to make it look branded. We're building integrations to all of the big POS solutions that are being used currently by the fast food chains, so that they can just plug us into what they're already doing. They don't change any behavior, and then their employees do have that ability to connect with their schedule digitally from the palm of their hand to keep some compliance and such. And then here in just about a week, we're releasing a new version where they'll be able to clock in and out through the app using the geofence. So they'll have time and attendance, time tracking, things of that nature that are really a great, kind of secondary solution. The payroll and the scheduling go hand in hand. But in addition to having an internal solution, we're going to be building in more integrations to other existing payroll solutions, because we find that the data that we generate and the ability that we have to help the management with the schedules is really something that plays nicely with everything from HR to the payroll, anything back office. So once we can have it be a one push button where it connects to whatever they're already using, then it changes the game for them. Then they're what I'm calling the misconception or the myth of that they have software that handles scheduling really does become what they don't know that they don't have right now, right? Which is the employees don't have that insight. And where we're moving very quickly, we have partnerships to this already, is that with the push of a button, a manager can actually hire a qualified temporary worker from the community or get an interview with someone that they could potentially hire full time. So we're getting into the job board, the temp staffing. We're looking to disrupt the gig economy for shift workers much in the way that Upwork has disrupted the gig economy for freelancers and for graphic designers and people kind of more in the IT space. So it's really bringing the work schedule as a cornerstone to help companies run the most efficiently and also to empower the employees in the community.
Sounds like a really sophisticated technology. Do they have some fears when it comes to talking to you guys about doing the scheduling and getting all these complicated parts of having employees put together?
That's a great question, and they do, and I think, and I relate to this. I think what we really experience more so than anything is we either need to educate them about how this can help them, or even more so, people are afraid of technology and people are afraid of change. And more so than anything, people don't like to be sold software, and they understand that it's not free. And so I think they really fear the price point. And although we don't compete on price, we've priced ourselves incredibly reasonable. We're $39 a month for a location. So, even if you've got 200 workers at a location, we're $39 a month, and presently we're offering $390 a year, which gets you the 2 months free, or brings it down even closer to the $32 or $33 a month mark. And we work with companies, especially some of the mom and pop shops. We can even work with them on price beyond that if they're small or they're a nonprofit or something. So we really don't want the cost to be prohibitive. We really want it to be very approachable. But I think even so, I think quite often, when people feel like they're being sold software, they kind of shut off, or they really get apprehensive. And I think when people are told that the way they're doing it isn't perfect, I think a lot of times people take exception or almost offense to that. So it is kind of a bit of a different sales cycle, I think. I mean, B2B SaaS software is already kind of its own beast as far as the long sales cycles and the many touch points and, the different ways to market. And then layer on top of that with us, we've got one probably decision maker in the company. So we can't, it doesn't matter if it's 1,000 people in the company and 800 of them want Shedwell, because if the decision maker, the upper echelon, doesn't understand the need or doesn't know that we exist, it doesn't matter, right? So it's super, super niche. And then once we get them, if they understand the solution and then they start to shop around, I think for the last year with the version that we've had, I think they're kind of saying, well, this looks pretty awesome and the price is right, but it doesn't speak to our POS or it doesn't speak to our payroll or whatever. And so that's what we've been aggressively coding for and testing for. We're going to be able to start launching POSs, integrations and other integrations pretty aggressively here within the next couple of weeks.
Sounds fantastic. Now, you guys have this forward-thinking technology, and I know there are a lot of companies out there that, they still have probably an issue when it comes to hiring a consultant like yourself. And even though I read recently that 33% of managers, they consider that the top scheduling challenging is maximizing labor productivity. Is that a thing that you find that people have a kind of a resistance to talking to a consultant and just bringing them in and explaining to them the problems they're having with the scheduling their employees?
I think not so much. I think a lot of them understand that the margins in a lot of the industries of shift workers are so thin that they understand that a 0.5% or a percentage of optimized labor can not only mean the difference between their personal bonus or not, or the location's bonus, but it really has a ripple effect throughout the company with these low margins. And so they're all watching labor. They're all looking for ways to optimize. But I think a lot of them, because and I love a lot of our competitors, and I don't want to trash talk anybody, but until very recently, and kind of until we launched about a year ago, most of the solutions on the market were somewhat one-dimensional and fairly expensive. So I think people don't understand inherently that the industry is changing and that the technology is getting more affordable and getting better, and that we're using data and machine learning and things like that to really deliver superior solutions. So I think a lot of the industries that we target, the management is either old school or has been trained and raised by the old school to kind of think that the way they do things are the way that things are done. And so I think you're right. We see a lot of the resistance really from the people that just don't understand or have given something like we offer a chance a couple years ago and decided that it wasn't for them at that time. And I think it's just been such a changing landscape. And, we're very encouraged and humbled that there are people that, have said no to our competitors that end up opening their ears then opening up their doors to us, and we're establishing some pretty awesome partnerships along the way.
Oh, great. Now, when some companies, they try to connect their employees and do their own scheduling, what kind of mistakes do you see they commit frequently when they try to do it themselves?
Yeah, I think that a lot of times employees don't know some of the data or thought processes behind some of the management's decisions. So when employees try to schedule themselves, quite often you'll get people just wanting to work with their friends, which means that they're not nearly as productive. Or you get people that are willing to stay and work far longer because they want to make more money, but then all of a sudden they become an overtime risk, and you're paying time and a half, and you can actually get dinged from a corporate level for that. Or you're finding that the people that are wanting to work the longer hours get burnt out, and they're not nearly as productive, or they don't hit their quotas or their KPIs. And or if it's a service-based industry, you find the people that always want to work the longer hours, they'll always do it, and there will always be people that want their hours taken because they're lazy, or they know how to work smarter, not harder. And you get these people where their morale or their performance actually suffers, and they don't know it because they're just happy to be there making any kind of money, specifically in the hotel and restaurant industry. So that's a big one, is just the burnout and the matchups and people wanting to work together. But also a lot of times when people want a day off, I'll take Father's Day as an example. In the restaurant industry, nobody wants to work on Father's Day for a number of reasons. And if you don't have software, and if you kind of let the internal team decide who's working, you're going to get a couple people that think they're rock stars that can take care of the entire floor, whatever it is. But at the same time, so many people are going to take the day off for, again, so many reasons. And you're going to end up at some point, if it's a restaurant, having a long wait for tables, having the table time suffer, having the term time suffer. You do less in volume as a general manager. That affects your bonus. And if there's so many things that can go wrong from that perspective. If you don't have enough dishwashers, you're breaking plates, and that costs money. If you don't have enough chefs, you're not getting the food out. And you can take that adversity on the industry. During the holiday season, everybody wants to work in retail as a side hustle to get their hours. But when it slows down, a lot of them still are wanting to get as many hours and make as much money in the season as they want, but you don't need them as an employer. So if you let them kind of do it, more people than you need are going to be on the floor. And again, that's costing you in labor. Whereas if you have the software, and if a manager can just go on the mobile app or just check very quickly, make sure they have the right amount of people, not too many, not too few, then it can really, at the end of the day, and we see this in certain industries, labor can make or break about $15,000 to $30,000 in bonuses for management, and single locations dispersed over just a couple of the managers. And so when they are running the margins that they are, and when a tenth of a labor point can be the difference between them making their bonus or not, having an app that you can check, or having a website you can check and make sure, again, that you're not overstaffed, that you don't have your overtime risks, is a great way not only to ensure the best optimized bottom line for the business, but personally for the management that depend on those bonuses also.
Well, sounds like a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
Do you have a case study, somebody that you helped kind of overcome some of these obstacles and help them move forward?
Oh yeah, we have a number, and then we highlight several of them on our social media and on our website, shedwell.com. But there's a hospitality group in the Southwest in Arizona. They have hotels and restaurants and coffee shops, and they all used to kind of run as their own entities. And quite often with the on-call shifts, and because they're a tourist destination, they would do, just like I mentioned, they'd either be too heavily staffed and people didn't make enough money, or they'd be understaffed and it would really suffer as far as sales, revenue, productivity. And so they didn't have software until we came around, and they were actually one of our very first customers. Somehow, I believe they found us, but we might have found them within probably the first 2 weeks of launching our MVP, our minimum viable product, over a year ago. And they started using us, and it was their HR manager at their corporate office. I think they have 12 locations or something all in. And all of a sudden, she could see who was working at what place, and sometimes move a waiter from one location to another so that one place didn't have one too many and one have too few, and it affected the customers and the sales and everyone's income. And they've just been loving us. They've been our biggest cheerleaders. They sing our praises on social media, and they give us great reviews all across the internet. And they're just one of many where I believe, and I could go back and check this, but I believe all of their managers made their labor bonus since they've been using us. And so it's just one of those things where having the right person with the right insight into a workforce is, or can be at least, everything for the success and the profitability of a business, especially in the hospitality industry that I'm so familiar with.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of people really need your services. Now, you opened up by saying that you were in the restaurant industry for a while. What inspired you to become a consultant? Was there something else? I know restaurants have a great challenge with the employees and scheduling and last minute calls that they can't come into work and this and that. Besides that, was there something else that let you know that it was time for you to step in as a consultant?
So throughout my career as a restaurant, I worked as a restaurant consultant on and off as well. And the real reason being, restaurants are so wasteful and it actually costs them a lot of money. And when people go hungry in the world and in this country, it's really sad to see restaurants with huge portions routinely throwing half of the portion in the garbage. And it's sad on a number of levels. There are people that could have used that food. The customer at the end of the day paid for that food. The restaurant is the one that ordered and stored that food. And it's going in the garbage, and it's literally turning into landfill, or it's just rotting and becoming biohazard, or whatever the case is. Right? It's a tragedy, and I realized I could make money. I was managing a restaurant concept, and I helped them become far more profitable. It started at the unit that I was at, and then we went, kind of regionally, and then we went nationally, and I helped them become so much more profitable. And then I realized that I could offer this to other restaurants. So I worked with a number of other groups on and off while I was also working in the restaurant industry on and off for, I believe it really was 20 years, or at least very close to that. And, the number of restaurants that retain me as a consultant, I would work with them typically for a couple months. And one of the things I always did was recommend that they make smaller portions. I don't think there's a reason for the gluttony. I mean, you can still serve a beautiful meal that's a nice size for the same price and just not have it be an amount that you can pretty much guarantee you'll get thrown down the drain or into the garbage. And at the end of the day, there are people that eat these huge meals and portions where they probably didn't need all that. It might make them sick, or there's just a myriad of reasons that slightly smaller portion sizes, or even drastically reduced portion sizes at some of the restaurants in the United States makes a lot of sense from every standpoint. So that's kind of what got me into consulting. And then I realized there were a number of things, glass size, certain plateware, certain ways even to, order that you can suggest food or suggestive selling. And so I've worked consulting with waiters, and as a sommelier, I used to train servers and train people to become sommeliers. And as an F&B director, I put together menus that really were driven towards how easy it was to sell. And so I was doing consulting in the restaurant industry in that regard. But then as I started my company 3 years ago and working with a number of mentors and people that have built very successful businesses and had huge exits, I realized a lot of things that people were doing and helping me with that were very beneficial. And also I was noticing a lot of people trying to do things that they thought were very helpful to me that for me personally were not helpful at all. So I started working with a number of companies, and I do a lot of the consulting work that I do right now is pro bono. And I do work with a lot of startups, a lot of early stage founders. I am a mentor with Founder Institute, and I mentor a lot of companies and entrepreneurs as well. And for me, being a consultant is different than being a mentor. And there is typically, some type of a dollar ascribed to consulting. Even if you're doing it pro bono, that there are certain, whether it's a tax write-off or whatever it is. But I really just enjoy helping people, kind of overcoming challenges that I've had to overcome and learn how to overcome and been taught how to overcome. And I think it really just comes from a place of gratitude and a place of, I had the right people consulting me and mentoring me and guiding me in my early stage, starting Shedbowl 3 years ago. And because I have that background consulting in the restaurant industry, it's really become a kind of natural progression. And that now I have a company that I'm in the ownership or the leadership of ownership as well. We're a consulting firm, and we work with some big brands that are global. And one of the things that we do from a consulting standpoint is we teach on the power of engagement on social media and diversity and inclusion as a powerful business strategy and a way to build the right profitable culture And so it's great. I get to kind of, implement what I consult other companies with into Shedwell as we build and scale. But I'm able to help other people in leadership and companies as well. Kind of, it's all grown organically out of, consulting in the restaurant industry, then mentoring and being a mentee as well. And now, being well on my way, I sit on several boards of some companies that are up to some really fun stuff. And, I've really kind of jumped all in to learn things from 3D printing and manufacturing and drop ship to last mile delivery and blockchain. And I'm really kind of all over the place. So from a consultant standpoint, kind of, being the jack of all trades, master of none, really is beneficial, particularly when I feel as though I know what my strengths are, and I also know what my weaknesses are, and where, where I'm probably, there's many companies that I wouldn't be the right guy to consult for right now. So when I identify an opportunity and I know I'm that guy and can provide value and they see it as well, it's been a fun experience so far.
I can tell you're really passionate about this, Cory. Is there a lesson from early on in your life that you can share with us, that something that still impacts how you do business today?
Yeah, I think just being a waiter on and off for the 20 years was really impactful because it gave me a really unique servant mentality, right? It's one thing to have waited tables. It's another thing to have done it for the better part of 20 years. And so you're kind of always on stage. So I'm not afraid to speak in front of big groups. I've had times as a banquet captain where I'd have to speak to rooms of 300 as a waiter. And, you kind of get over your fear of public speaking or anything there. So now when I speak to rooms of 500 or 1,000 people, I've been there, done that. So even my first couple of times, I wasn't nervous. I think I got nervous. I cut my chops in the, the banquet halls and the prime steakhouses. And as a waiter, your sales cycle is very different. You just have to be attentive and listen, right? People are already hungry. They already know what kind of food you serve. They're already sitting in your section. So you don't need to sell them on anything. You don't need to convince them that they need to eat food. You don't need to convince them that they want a pizza or a steak or whatever it is. If it's that type of establishment, they're good. They've already bought into your offering. So having that mentality where, now I like to educate people on what Shedwell offers. However, what I don't do is try to convince someone that they need whatever it is that I have in my back pocket. We happen to have a solution that I think is very powerful for a number of companies and industries. And, what I love to do anymore, and I'm very active on LinkedIn, but I love to talk to people like yourself and just talk about business and formats just like this, where we can share it out to a number of people that will hear this. And the right people come to us. And so we do have an outbound sales team as well as an inbound sales team. But honestly, I find that most of our business is either referral business or business that comes to us through some of the PR that I take. And it's been really effective.
We've been here for a while, and this stuff is fascinating. What will be something that you will recommend someone that is looking to hiring a consultant to take care of their scheduled shift work? What will be the advice that you give them when they're thinking about doing that?
Well, I think right now it's really all about, depending on the industry and depending on the state, a lot of it really is about being compliant and understand the real drivers behind these labor laws. Why are these states passing labor laws like they are? Why are they passing fair scheduling laws? Once you can get to the why, once you can really identify that these are there for a reason and that there are technology solutions like Shedwell that can actually help you be compliant, and then once what someone like myself as a consultant can come forward and really help with is show them that this is the why, this is the how, but this is actually how it's beneficial for your business. Here's how we can use these, emerging processes to optimize labor and to hit your labor percentages and to get you your bonus and to have a happier staff and to have lower turnover retention, which means you have to hire less people and train less people, which costs you less money and helps you with your sales. And, it's just all the understandings and all the nuances of what an optimized schedule and an optimized labor force really looks like. And then as a consultant like myself, I've got Shedwell as a tool, but I know all the other tools on the market, not only from a scheduling perspective, but from accounting software, from hiring software, from training software, anything like that. So what a good consultant can do is they can recommend and postulate software solutions that'll actually all have a return on investment. If you can spend a little money on 10 different software tools that are going to each make you 20% more profitable you put those together and you could be 100% more profitable as a concept, or 200% even, depending on how serious you want to take it and what solutions fit your business. You can become so much more profitable by optimizing a lot of these processes and just using the right software solutions. And so many of them, like Shedwell, have become so affordable. Just a couple of years ago, to use something like Shedwell would cost any restaurant or in any business, I think it's anywhere from 150 on the super low end to more like $350 a month. And so a lot of the smaller places, they don't have that margin. And I think that the misconception is that that's how expensive it is to get a good solution like Shedwell. Well, not only are we $39 a month, but I also know some really affordable software solutions in any other industry you can think of, from point of sale to finance to legal. The prices on everything are driven down when you know where to look and you know the right questions to ask. And I think that's really why any business is wise to leverage consultants, or some of the bigger companies are even developing cultures of entrepreneurs and getting their executives and now their mid-level executives coaches as well, because we can all as humans and as businesses always continue to learn, always continue to evolve, always continue to become more profitable, more impactful, more helpful. And, that's what a good consultant does. And I'd say anyone looking to work for a consultant, or looking to bring on a consultant to any capacity, let their track record speak for them. Take a look at them on social media, see how their community responds to what they have to say, see if they're leading by example, see, if people endorse and recommend them as a consultant, if people that have worked with them have seen results. At that point, it's probably, if you have a budget for it, or if you're able to bring on a consultant and you found somebody that you think will work well with you, give them a try. If you don't see results, then there's probably some reason to explore. Maybe it's the consultant, maybe it's the business. But if you bring on a consultant and they help you make more money, right? I think that's the secret sauce. We're all looking for something that helps us make more money. And if it turns out someone with expertise or domain knowledge can help a business manager or individual be more profitable, that's something that you can, if you can put 10 cents in and have a dollar come out, that's something that I think most people are interested in doing time and time over again.
And I know you mentioned the advantages earlier in this conversation, but before you leave, can you just go over the advantages one more time of connecting their employees to each other and their work schedules for shift work companies? So I think it would be worth to kind of go over that one more time just quickly before you go.
Yeah, I would love that. Now I'll touch on a couple of the benefits, but then I'll also go over to some high level features that Shedwell offers, so your audience knows that as well. And they can always check us out again at shedwell.com or on either of the app stores. But having employee scheduling software and apps is great because it increases productivity, it increases visibility so that you don't run into overtime or overstaffing or understaffing. Having a messaging component between teams with their management and each other really does help optimize for the right use cases. And then things that we offer are media upload, where you can actually do the training, or you can automate a pre-shift meeting. From a manager's perspective that's doing the scheduling, you can do drag and drop scheduling on Shedwell. You can do copy and paste. You can change the parameters. You can filter through to see any department position or anything like that. You can see who's qualified, available, who's an overtime risk. You can go through and upload certifications in any industry that would need a certification. And one of our users in a police station, a sergeant, said that we make them feel safer because they can go on their phone and see who they're working with, make sure their partner is going to be with them, and they have the coverage. We have a hospital that says it's great because when they need a surgeon, if it's last moment and they're on call, then they still actually use a pager, which makes me laugh, but it's cool. But when they're getting ready to put together the week schedule or the day schedule, and they know how many beds they have open, and they know, if it's a holiday, maybe they're going to have more people come in from drunk driving, and they can actually use the data and go back and look at actuals through Shedwell and help forecast their labor and put together a schedule in advance, broadcast it out to their staff, and everybody has more visibility. So, a lot of those different things are all great in and among themselves, but when you tie them all together, it really just creates this robust ecosystem to help companies schedule and manage their employees online.
Cory, I want to say thank you. Appreciate you taking off your business schedule to come and educate us and share with us how to use your technology to improve our scheduling, especially for shift work companies. I really want to say thank you to you, because I know You're extremely busy guy, and this stuff is so important, and this education is really, really interesting and really fascinating. So I want to say thank you one more time, sir.
It's a pleasure. You're very welcome, and thank you for having me, JC.
All right. And Cory's links are going to be just below this recording, and he's available on LinkedIn. He's easy to find, and I really recommend anybody that needs this kind of technology to contact Cory and look into his company. Thank you again, Cory.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.